Thanks again, Baking, for the introduction and for the invitation. As he mentioned, we met in Venice with Bekim, and I think this was my first connection to Kosovo and Pristina. This project actually was the first connection. I was a jury member at the Olsen Foundation for Sustainable Design on the European team, and we spent quite a lot of time deciding which project was the best, in terms of the value and the energy that was bringing to a community, and the value also that could embed, sustainability in it. And we thought this was a very poetic project to recycle bricks to make new life, for the city. And out of this project, I arrived here. So I think architecture is really, in many ways, can connect different world and different people. So myself, I am a founder of, co-founder of the office AFACT, Architectural Factory, with offices in Milan and London. And I'm also teaching at the Architectural Association, where I lead a course in sustainable cities. And so this theme of city after somehow in a way made me think about the city from a different perspective. And so I'm very thankful for that. Just to give you a little bit understanding of what we do at the Architectural Association in the sustainable environmental design. This is what was my dissertation about 15 years ago. And we basically investigate a real-life project sited within a broad range of climate, so everywhere in the world, basically. But also problems have the ambition of trying to solve very pressing social issues. In this case, my project was, as a student, was focused on addressing the challenges of migration from sub-Saharan Africa to Europe. And we envision a building that could work both as a migrant center and as a primary school according to the seasonality of migration. So let's say cross-referencing data has always been part of the way I work and we work in our office. And this is kind of also what we do in our project. Project that mainly, let's say, focus on how cultural, social, and technical force shape spaces. And we like to observe how places function and how architecture can connect with them. And we are realizing that this profession is becoming more and more difficult because these forces are many more, and they are tangible but also untangible. So we like to work at the intersection between the building and the city. So let's say that scale that is urban but is still connected to the building. And we think this is a very important element where the city and the community is created. Our name, in fact, comes from this book. Our philosophy is rooted in the idea presented in this book, called Factfulness, that explore common misconception about global trends and trying to understand the world through data in a more accurate way. This was a book written by a doctor who was working in a very difficult situation, and so he had to take a decision very quickly based not on emotion but based on a real problem. And we realized that to do that, we need to embed the complexity, not simplify things. And I think during the history, architecture has been very good at simplifying things. But we think that the reality of things is not a limit, but can be a source of inspiration. Architecture should not impose itself, but accept in a way is vulnerability. So on the left you see, well, on your left you see Bologna city center, which is very colorful, and leave space for things to happen that probably are unpredictable. And then on the right side you see maybe more a view of standardizing a way of living for people. Let's say part of the course I teach is about understanding also how building works and the impact the buildings have to the city. And we understand that architecture is a complex dialogue. There is not only about form and space, but and is never also an abstract or a dogmatic idea, but is always the fruit of tensions and between context, history, practical need, and so on. So you see on the left, the Centre Pompidou is a building that we may think was imposed into a context, but actually was in a way trying to interpret, a force that was already there in the city. As I was saying, our profession is becoming very difficult. And our ambition as architect often collides with the reality of the profession. And one of the biggest ambitions is to be carbon neutral in 2050, which is easy but not too easy, as we know. So we have to work with the regulation that try to face this challenge. On the other side, we have to work with the people, and we have to solve a problem with the people. This is an image that often I show to my students of sustainable environmental design. You can see a plaza to the left, Mexico City, that is completely exposed to the sun, and all the people try to catch the shade under the flag. And then on the right, you see example in London, where you have different opportunities to adapt to how you feel in the space. You can stay in the shadow, half shadows, or you can stay in the sun. So these choices are often for the architect or for the urban planner to make. And then other client that we have now is the environment. This diagram comes very often in our discussion. It shows the average building consumption of CO2 and then the emission. We can see that the first 2 years of the building, where the building is constructed, and the construction phase takes for almost half of the building emission. And then the last 53% is kind of operational emission of the building. And then the last 3 years is considered the final end of life, which we try not to have anymore now in the new way we see architecture. So data help us understand a little bit better the impact of what we do, right? And there are some buildings that can live forever, and suddenly they become very sustainable in a way, and others that are maybe born very sustainable, and then they are demolished and rebuilt after 50 years. So we need to frame this in a very, let's say, general context of thing. And then this is another diagram that we always show to the client, is there is no such a thing as sustainability at all cost, but there is always a balance between cost, sustainability, and that sweet spot, we call it the design optimum, because we still need to face the challenge of today. And then finally, the problem, if we think about the future, we need to think about the problem of tomorrow. Things like, water or energy will be much more important in the future than they are now. And things like, or climate, things like, for example, transport can be, pollution will be solved in an easier way. So this is, when we think about cities, this is kind of an idea that we have to keep in mind. Still, let's say the challenge is very big. I'm talking about the climate challenge, but also other challenge that the city after in a way, has to solve. This is another image, for example, of the city of Jakarta, where 25% of the city will be submerged by 2050. And so what is the city after this? There is no city basically here. But we need to have, in a way, strategy to prevent that these things happen or other catastrophes happen. And well, after this introduction, basically I want to show how the contemporary city is very uncertain in many ways. Climate change, political instability, technological transformation, shifting of social patterns, challenge of the idea that we had of the city and architecture that was a permanence, growth, and urban form. So the way we try to see architecture is not as the production of building, which is often, I mean, I think you can also feel this when you walk around your city. Architecture as a production of building, no? But the most difficult thing is probably negotiating the relationship between memory, landscape, ecology, collective imagination. Today I'm gonna talk about the city aspect from 2 points of view. Basically, the first one is the city after the disaster or after the emergency, and I'm going to talk about the danger of the new city, because as architects we are very responsible of making what comes next right. And then the second one, I will show 2 projects that is our way to see how the new city should be built. These projects are located, well, they are not all projects. The first part I'm going to talk about something that happened where I come from, Sicily. It's a small city called the Gibellina, which is on the on the west side of Sicily. And then I'm going to show 2 projects, one from Italy, Bologna. There is a social housing project that we are currently developing, and maybe a project that is closer to Kosovo, that is in Podgorica, which is the result of a competition that we won 2 years ago, and is basically a new urban park with a museum in, let's say, a young capital. So the first part is about what happened just after the city there is no city anymore. And what I'm going to talk about is the city of Gibellina, where in 1968 a huge earthquake basically destroyed the whole town. And I think there was a very good example of energy and power to rebuild the city. And instead of giving up, leaders and the mayor in that case use modern art, creativity, and to try to build a new hope for the people of Gibellina. And I think what's interesting in this case that the mayor asked the help of an artist and say, what do we do now? What is the right things to do in this case? And basically the idea was to first thing commit, like try to create something that would always remember the disaster, but at the same time would be almost an element of hope for the new city. So basically what he did, this artist that is Burri, it's a very famous Italian artist, he covered the city, the ruin of the city with the concrete, and what you can see here is the pattern of the old city, the street and the urban blocks that stays there as a memory. This, I think, is the biggest artwork ever made. It's an entire city. And I always wonder, I think it's very powerful in general, but I always wonder if this is architecture, is landscape, is culture, is asymmetry, is urban plan. I still don't know what it really is. But at the same time, it's embedding destruction and probably preservation at the same time. I think the paradox in this case is extremely rich. If you go there, I invite you to go, because when you walk through it, you really feel the pain of such event. But as architect, I was more interested in what was the strategy of the mayor after. So where are the people gonna go? And what they did was, in theory, a very good idea. So they decided to create a new city, 7 miles away from the original city, and they invited for the construction the best architect, professor, and artist in Italy at that moment to envision the new city. But the experiment didn't go very well. Ghibellina, it's often called the postmodern utopia, because there are all these perfect square and plaza. They didn't really reflect much of the old city, and most of the time they were empty. I went many times to visit Ghibellina because I think it's a wonderful example, and all the people were always staying in the less designed part of the town. So looking for shade, looking for area that resemble more the old city. This is to say that can architecture save the world? Probably not alone, because architecture is very complex and it needs much more than that. It needs everybody with their own different knowledge to chip in and in a way collaborate to the new city. And then I ended up with these kind of thoughts that I had, maybe the city after. And then what I thought was, what is really the city of Ghibellina when you think about that? Is the new city? Is the old ruins that were turned into a landmark? We really don't know. And then I came out with this. Perhaps the city after is not the city that we built, but is the city that we remember. And that architecture can, yes, reconstruct the street and houses, but the most difficult thing is to rebuilding belongings, and it's the greatest challenge that we have as an architect. And I think it's the challenge that we often fail. Sometimes this is another example that I convey when in my Sustainable Cities course, is how the city were rebuilt before and after disaster. For example, this is Kuwait City that was completely destroyed by war and then rebuilt with completely no memory of what was left before. And this happened in many cities of the world, and I think it changed a lot the society that lives the different places. And what we're trying to do is trying to support the form of growth for people that preserve social connection, cultural identity, and the quality that make a city both in a way resilient and livable. So, and this kind of leads me to the second part of the presentation, that is about our project, the project that we are developing. I selected 2 of them. That are not about reconstructing, but about constructing or building, more than building, try to build a community. And as you can see, you will find that this project never start from a tabula rasa, but always from a deep understanding of what's the need of the moment is, what the need of the past was, and what the site offer. The first project I'm going to show is a big master plan in Bologna, and it's the biggest social housing we are currently have in Italy, which is not doing really great with social housing project in general, and is the result of a competition that we did I think 2 years ago. Now we are submitting for cost. And it comprises 7 plots for 300 units in total, including student accommodation, elderly accommodation, and family accommodation. I come back to this image because in Italy, often social housing carries a very, let's say, a stigma in a way. There are very few truly successful examples to challenge this perception. On the right side, you see a very famous neighborhood. On the other side, the country, as Italy, as you know, is a country rich of history and has a rich variety of historical centers that works really well with the well-integrated communities. So we knew that our challenge was very big because we were going to build with a modern way a new city that had a new part of the city that had standards that are of the modern city, but at the same time we wanted to keep that community, that vibrant, that richness that the old city had. And the site was not a new site, and the project was already there. We inherited this, so this comes back to the idea that we have to work with very complex situation. We inherited the master plan from a project of the 1990s, and the brief required us not to alter the situation because the plan was already approved. So the architect needed to work around the approved plan. So the idea of the original plan was very modernist. So the idea of proposing like a monotonous series of bar building concentrated around with the uniform height and concentrated around the parking lot. Of course, it's an approach that prioritizes standards over quality and over human scale experience. So the first thing that we did was to apply, let's say, a lot of principles of sustainable urban design that we are studying, we everyday studies, and we experience at university. So the first thing was to free up the central space and to move around the cars, because moving around the cars make also possible to oversee areas that otherwise would be empty with no patrolling in a way. And so we kept this green area in the center as the heart of the community. The second step was more, I would say, to reconnect the master plan with the broader city. So we kind of restored the historical pathways. There are the one that comes along that little stream that you see. And we introduced a new cycle route that could connect this city in 10 minutes with the city center. And then we basically start, as you can see, changing slightly the shape by reinforcing this direction. And we adjusted the prescribed building volume to strengthen this connection more so that the building could kind of accompany also the direction. And then I think one of the moves was to try to redistribute a little bit density, and we were able to introduce height variation and create a little bit of more variety to the facade that were facing the central courtyard. We did further fragmentation, and then the volumes, this fragmentation allow us to transform the shared space into hubs for social interaction and well-being. So we have residential blocks that were equipped with rooftop terraces and community greenhouses, and to support urban agriculture and to foster, in a way, the participation of the community together. We also wanted to add colors, because colors reflect the rich varieties of Bologna Historical Center. We kind of pick hue from the historical center and create a kind of sense of identity through the variation of the color rather than through one color only. This is kind of the final master plan that we are implementing. And critical focus was on the ground floor. So we wanted to avoid private ground floor, and we wanted to work with community-based company that were trying to activate more the different services in the city. And so we try to, through a dialogue with them, to activate this ground floor with the services for the community, and in a way to make this as a little village that was living together. The system is conceived as a network of bridge and urban and residential at urban and at the residential scales, and also try to encourage activities that in Italy take place regardless of you if you push them or not, like for example growing stuff on your balcony, or staying with meeting your neighborhood in the hall of the building. So we wanted to, a little bit to build around these activities of the people. The building were very cheap. As you can see, it's a very small windows to wall ratio, because we wanted to reduce, of course, the consumption, and we didn't use any balcony because they were expensive to build. But we use this Juliet balcony where people can still, look outside, could talk, because it's quite a big part of also Bologna's traditional way of living. All the apartments were designed with to avoid basically overheating in summer through this small opening, but also through cross ventilation. So all the apartments have cross ventilation, and the typology was a little bit of a mix of a modernist typology of a corridor building and a typology in linea, which is the typical typology in Italy. So we wanted to create a different also situation with the smaller apartment located on the corridor building and the bigger block on the in linea one. We used off-site construction to reduce on-site construction time, because as we saw in the original diagram, the more time you spend on a construction site, the more CO2 you are consuming. And we try to use the FMA principle designed for manufacturing and assembling. The idea was to have this concrete core, and then use timber for modular timber for all the rest of the unit, and prefab stairs, bathroom, and other standardized element. This is a final image that we envision, very big, very full of people, and a mix of communities and this richness that characterize Bologna, and with the activities that span from the urban to the architectural scale. Finally, let's say the other project is the one in maybe close to Kosovo, is in Montenegro. And this project is again another competition that we did 2 years ago, and now we are submitting for cost. Is a competition that was done to build a new cultural district. So it was a very ambitious project, but also very important project in terms of giving an identity, cultural identity to a young country. And it consists of 3 distinct museum buildings, a botanical garden, a public riverfront promenade, and a second phase that is private but related to cultural function. And as you can see, this project may seem in a way an idea that came quickly, but actually was a very long process. We had to study a little bit better the country, in the city of Podgorica, that is the capital. And the city is characterized by this beautiful landscape, relatively limited urbanization, and a very striking natural surrounding, including mountains, the river, and a very lush valley. The site was basically located in a very important part of the city, because the city was generated by the river Moracha, and is the main, which is the main access of the city. And the site was surrounded by hills and valleys, and so it needed to create a dialogue between these two elements. But as I mentioned, we had to study a little bit better why the city was. We couldn't really find a center in this city when we were analyzing from the top. So we started talking with people from the area, and then studying a little bit, and we saw that there were very different period of time that you could read in the city very, very well. The old Ottoman settlement, which was very organic on the south. Then there was a more modernist development that then became the historical the center of the city. And then on the other side of the river, you have the Soviet area with a big block, a big modern building that were very distant to provide solar access. So three different, in a way, philosophy of living were coexisting in the same cities, which is very interesting, but so separate between them. While in Italy, usually we have a different kind of stratification when the city grows around the historical center. So the site was located, as you can see, strategically along the river, and it was had the potential to create a real public space for the people. In terms of data and analysis, for us it was evident that the competition was, the site was part of a larger natural system, and the success of this project in a way hinged on the balancing the preservation of the ecosystem of the natural setting with the organization of the program in the site. So the main challenge were three: how do we connect the river, how we reconnect the green system, and then how do we attract people to create this new cultural community for the city of Podgorica, which share a lot of similarities with the other city of the areas. But of course, as architect, you start always with sketch. First idea comes through intuition. And so we started through analyzing the area where most of the trees were located. It was also the area where the city was approaching the site from, which was an angle not the best. But from there, maybe we could start our direction that could create this kind of green continuous platform and make this green platform as a connection between the city and the river. And then we start emerging some shape that were, of course, not continuous, but were broken in order to allow permeability, to let people make use of the different spaces and make use of the different opportunity that building next to each other can create, rather than just one big gesture. And then from there it emerged this idea that basically the park was fighting against the river, and the river was eroding part of the system, and basically in this tension is where the community was going to stay. And so it emerged this idea of creating these hills, this building that is not a building, and people could walk on top, and then on the other side the building emerged as a more materic and mineral way of conceiving the landscape. And then this is how the idea that was connected to the system of road and direction that Podgorica had limited, but in a way everything was generated from that angle and then progressed and connected to the rest. The final master plan is this. We had to work very hard to allow for accessibility for everybody, because it was, I think, first element of our design was to allow everybody to be able to enjoy all the parts of the project. because it's something unique for Podgorica to be able to, in the city, to experience the river somehow. And then here you can see, in a way, the idea that when you approach the museum, the building rises hills, and you go inside, you immerse yourself into the building, and on the other side, the river becomes a more active, protected area connected with the entrance also on the other side of the museum. Before getting to those shapes, we did a strong analysis with our landscape designer. We started with counting all the trees, dividing the trees according to the importance, so categorizing with categories A and category B, which are the most important to preserve, the less important, and then the one that are not really contributing to the variety of the ecosystem. And then we decided that our project had to, in a scientific way, add a lot of value. So we basically, counting how many trees with the budget we could plant, so we had 532 new trees and 900 shrubs. And also we started placing them in a way that these could allow for a variety of situations of shade and sun that create different zone to allow people to decide where to go and to enhance outdoor comfort. Because the motto was that the museum was the park and the park was the museum. So the two things had to collaborate. This is another image from the top where you can see the three buildings and the new public space in front. But also the access of and the way the building kind of transition from the park to the river, from the more green to the more mineral side. And actually, part of it was inspired by the vernacular approach of the Ottoman city in the Moracha River, and this idea that the variety was created in trying to create a dialogue with the situation that you had there, the natural settlement of the river, and how this variation could play also with the river going up and down during different moments of the year. And this gave the idea for this basic section, that was this transition from the river from the park to the river. And also we wanted that to be the main experience of the museum, so people could feel outdoor when they enter. And the lobby was designed to connect, as you can see, to have depth, to see what's happening on the other side, to make people see each other very easily, but also to be always exposed to the green with this skylight you can see on top. And then outside, this experience was also kind of enhanced through these ramps and connection to the river through the building, in between the building. That in a way is also an experience itself, to be in between these buildings, or be on top or be inside the building itself. So this was our way to interpret a site, to interpret a community, to interpret also the energy that this city has at the moment. The capital of Montenegro is trying to go through, let's say, a process of trying to get to also be part of the European Union, to trying to embrace the spirits that characterize also many cities in Europe. Of course, in terms of phasing, was a very important element. So we played with the different part. We thought that the first phase was the biggest museum, but also in the first phase we had to find the space to grow the trees that will be then planted to the next phases. And so the first phases was also embedding a nursery for trees and then when you move on, the trees will be ready and could be planted all over the space. This is a small video that shows a little bit better what the museum is going to be. I hope you can go soon to visit. Finally, I think what I learned out of this presentation, while doing this presentation, is probably reinforced a little bit the importance of what we do, especially when we work with cities. And it's written in this sentence, architecture's most important contribution is not anymore the creation of a permanent object, but the cultivation of environments capable of evolving through times. And so probably the city affair is not an end point, but an ongoing process in which design supports cultural memory, ecological resilience, and a new form of collective life. And with this I finish. Thank you.
Any questions?
Don't be shy.
Very shy. I'll ask you a question. Like the third building, it was like the Museum of Historic Nature. Like
yes, I
didn't
didn't mention. One was contemporary architecture, contemporary art. The central one is contemporary art. The right one is Natural History Museum, and the left one is House of Architecture.
Oh,
so it's basically all the museum. The city doesn't have many museums, or it has, but it doesn't have really a cultural center.
the buildings, the other buildings on the left.
The other building was part of a private development, but were part of the overall master plan. So now there is a competition to design the building through the scheme that we gave. But it's a private site. Yeah. It's not really part of the.
And what is happening currently with like the museum, like?
We are basically submitting the let's say schematic for costing. So I don't know. It's different in Montenegro than what we are used to. So we're basically costing for the bid for the next phase. So
you need to bid for. You need to bid for your own project.
Yeah, but it's gonna start with the first. So the phase is first, which is the central one, and then the others. Hopefully, let's start with the first. I don't know. You know better how things moves around. Yeah. So
very complicated, man. I wish you good luck, man, and I hope you get it. But any questions? If not, we'll take a short. There's a question.
Okay, good.
Do you think that burying a city, just to remember what happened, it is more important than leaving that part of the land for the others that are yet to come? Because I think that we should treat the land like borrowed, not owned by us, because I hope they are next generation to come.
It's a very good question, because I myself question that intervention, right? Is the right approach? In fact, is it a cemetery that they create? Is it city? Well, I can answer by saying that we need to frame the context in which that land art was done. No, it was a different moment, historical moment, no, for the society, for Italy, and what I know is that it was not really convenient to rebuild the new city in general as an approach. But also this is also part of what I'm saying. The difficult part of the architect is to understand what is the best thing to do, no? And clearly they didn't do the right thing, because they create a city that it's a ghost city. Now nobody's living there. So there is no, in my opinion, I'm not bringing this example, to say this is what we should do. And I don't know if this is what we should do. For sure, this is something that didn't go well. There is still a memory of the city and a remembrance, of what happened through that land art moment. But what we should do as architects is to learn from this event and trying to understand how the new city, the city that comes after, that we are envisioning, how should be. Not about the shape, not about the form. It's more about the value that it needs to embed. No, the city needs to embed, and because the city says a lot about also the people who live in the city. It says a lot about many things. No. And so it's a very difficult question, because it's a question of people trying to, let's say, the sociological part of the architect to try to understand what is best for a community. It's a big responsibility. That's why I think our profession is difficult, and it's not for everybody, to be honest.
We know that we have had so many wars during these two centuries, or if we bury Palestine or any other country that has been in war,
yeah.
What are we doing like architects? That's what I'm saying.
I don't think we should, first of all.
Now we have other options to memorize what happened and to document the history. So I think burying the city, it's not one thing. Absolutely,
I think the same. In that case, it was a different, as I was saying, it's different moment. 60s, it was an earthquake, so it was a bit different as a disaster event. Maybe it was a moment where we were very positive, in general. It was the economic boom. People were thinking, okay, the old city is gone. We do, if we have to do something new, we built a new city that is going to be perfect for the new people. So we need to frame always the event and the situation and the answer, because this was done with I think it was done with a positive, or with an idea of doing something good. It wasn't done with the idea of something bad. So let's say my discussion is more about how we do it, after. How we do it, rather than should we do it or not, I personally believe that cities needs to be rebuilt, often try to replicate the same atmosphere, the same things that we had before, but also to interpret a new hope, for the people. And probably these things will never be done today, right? In any circumstance. But I think it teaches us a lot, of what not to do or what to do. That's part of artists work also in different way than architects. They have different way of expressing their words. So.
Was it like in the case you showed? Was it like it was inconvenient to rebuild the town there or something?
Yes.
Because of the bedrock.
Well, it was a part of I think our overall strategies. There was also a political idea that the new city could be built by artists, could be you know, there could be more hope out of a disaster. This was the original idea, you know, how we can turn this into something that actually is bringing some hope to people and not make people go. So the idea was we do something new, beautiful, fantastic, so people will be very happy to stay here. They will remember what happened, but they will stay just close to the site and in a new happy world. So it wasn't done with bad intention, but probably was not done with the very good vision.
We'll speak like in the break with her, because I have a case like
Yes,
of
sure,
Costa,
sure.
which is super interesting, and why, like, if there will be an earthquake there, like, it's very hard they're gonna rebuild it. So,
So also, yeah, there is also an element of technicality on the city, on the aspect.
Thanks again, Pierluigi.
Thank you everybody.
More or less, trust me, so I wait,